Hey, welcome to another episode of our podcast. And tonight, Suzanne will tell us what is so important about today, and what are we celebrating.
Um, Today is October 3rd, and it's TV cartoon superhero Underdog's 56th birthday.
That's amazing. So Underdog is getting close to collecting Social Security.
No, he won't be at that point for another 9 years.
That's right, but it's close, right? It's getting closer.
Yeah. Have I ever explained to you about how the months of the year, well, that is, the days of the week and the numbers of the days align themselves certain ways so that a whole year's pattern repeats itself every few years?
Well, you can go ahead and explain it. I'm not sure if I remember exactly.
Well, this year has the exact same day of the week, numbers of days within each month as 1964 did, and 1992.
I see. And why is that important?
Well, Underdog premiered October 3rd, 1964, and that was a Saturday. And here it is October 3rd again, and it's a Saturday too. So like I said, this year has the exact same number and date alignments as 1964 and 1992. Since all three of those years are leap years, a leap year's pattern repeats itself only once every 28 years. Years that aren't leap years repeat their pattern every 5 to 6 years.
Okay, and how would somebody relate to that if they're using, for example, a Mayan calendar?
A what calendar?
A Mayan calendar?
I don't understand what that is.
Well, the ancient Mayans had a different calendar.
Well, I don't know how their calendars worked. How they whether they had the same numbers of days in the week or the same month or any identicals to our calendar.
Okay, and then by our calendar, you're referring to
the Gregorian calendar,
right? Because there was also another one with the 2-week difference, right?
Yeah, that's the Julian calendar.
Right. So now with the Underdog, when you first saw the show, who was the first character? Was Shoeshine Boy first, and then Underdog showed up later in the show?
The first Underdog episode I saw, the adversary stole the show for quite some time in the first 2 episodes before we got around to Shoeshine Boy, and then he changed into Underdog. But then the episode ended right at that point.
Was that Simon Bar Sinister or Riff Raff?
Simon Bar Sinister.
No, what's the difference between those two? Like, what was the main difference?
Simon Bar Sinister was a criminal scientist. I think he was patterned after the criminal scientist that menaced the Superman, Lex Luthor, because both men were bald.
How about Riff Raff?
Well, Riff Raff was more down to earth. He was a mobster.
Story was kind of set up where they would harass Sweet Polly, and then Shoeshine Boy would turn into Underdog.
Well, sometimes sometimes Polly got herself into trouble by sticking her nose into businesses she shouldn't have.
So she wouldn't listen.
No, she was well, technically she was a news anchor woman, on a TV news anchor woman, but she also went out in search of news, which is why she got herself into trouble at least half the time.
Okay, so what else should we know about Underdog? What's important about it?
We have to remember he was not a run-of-the-mill cartoon character. He was a superhero, so that makes him, well, of higher status than the average cartoon characters. Also, like Superman, Underdog could fly. Not very many fictional characters are given that ability.
Tennessee Tuxedo couldn't fly.
Well, no. Tennessee Tuxedo was a penguin, and penguins don't fly.
No, that's what I'm saying. So it's hard for them to do anything. They have wings, can't fly.
Yeah. Well, Tennessee Tuxedo never interacted with Underdog. He was a totally independent character.
Right, but he wouldn't even be in the same continent, let's say.
Yeah.
The voice of character, you want to tell us about the actor who played the voice?
The actor who was Underdog's voice has been dead for almost 50 years.
Okay, but you want to tell people who he was?
His name was Wally Cox. Now, he also was a regular on an old vintage TV show called Mr. Peepers. Now, I was around at that time, but I was much too little to be aware of that program.
Right, so he was an actor and comedian.
Yes.
Okay, and how about other people? Who else was in that show?
Other voices?
Right.
Norma Macmillan was the voice of Polly.
Okay, and then wasn't Alan Swift doing the evil, the Simon's character in Riff Raff?
I don't remember. See, at the end of every Underdog show installment for that week, in the closing credits they would list the voices, but they listed only the actors and actresses' voices. They didn't say which characters they represented.
There was no internet back then, so you would have to find out in a different way.
Yes.
How long did the show run?
The show ran for almost 3 years, I think, on NBC. Then it disappeared for a few weeks, and then it reappeared on CBS. It was by 1968 he was stopped running on the networks and began rerunning on what was then ultra high frequency television.
You can still see it occasionally. I don't know if they play it a lot, but back in the early 70s, I guess it was still running, and then recently, I haven't seen it recently.
I haven't seen him rerun in nearly 2 decades.
Now, there was that movie that came out a couple of years back.
It was 13 years ago.
No, it's been that long already, and that didn't do so well.
It was terrible. It was a live action movie, but it didn't do Underdog justice at all.
Mm-hmm. So what is it that you didn't like about the movie?
It had some live animals in it. Well, Polly would have been, like I said, a TV news anchor woman, but in the movie she was just another dog walking on 4 legs.
Mm-hmm.
and Riff Raff too was just an animal.
That wasn't true to what you remember it being a true underdog.
No. One of the things I was taught or pressured to hate about Underdog and the other characters was that their low intelligence level, simplistic, unrealistic stories, melodramatic dialogue. Did I say unrealistic plots?
Yes.
So there was a general lack of believability.
How about the creators of the show?
Well, that was Total Television Productions. They showed that as part of the closing credits.
Yes, but do you want to mention the people who actually created the Underdog?
I didn't learn who was Underdog's creator until 1999. His name was Joe Harris.
Okay, but he was one of the two. Do you know the other one?
No, they gave credit to only one person.
Okay, because there's usually two listed. William Biggers is another one.
I never learned about him.
Mm-hmm. But you almost met Joe Harris once.
A couple of times I thought I was going to meet him when I was scheduled to perform Underdog someplace, but he chickened out at the last minute.
Do you remember what happened?
No, he just canceled and just refused to come. Because I really wanted to talk with him. Why had he chosen to make Underdog such a campy superhero? Like many people remember the live-action Batman TV series. Those Batman and Robin were just a couple of clowns.
That would be.
Why did Joe Harris choose to make Underdog like that?
Would you prefer it if there was a serious character?
I would have preferred him if he had been more serious. Now, the vintage Superman TV series from the early 50s, I think, to just a year or two into the 60s was more serious and more realistic.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you know which other characters he created?
Joe Harris?
Yeah.
There was Commander McBragg, this British Army general, Commander McBragg, who boasted about adventures of his.
Did you ever watch Klondike Cat?
Yes, I saw that, but he always lost out to his arch enemy, Savoir-Faire, a mouse.
Right. And did you know that Joe Harris created him as well?
He did?
Yeah, and so did, he also created Tennessee Tuxedo and Trix Rabbit, from the cereal.
Yeah, but the Trix Rabbit was strictly on commercials, not a storytelling series.
Mm-hmm. Right, but he created the character.
Because see, when all these characters came out, there was no mention made of who their creators were.
Right, yeah, it was much tougher back then to find out and look stuff up. And do you know they have something else in common with you?
Did who have something in common with me?
Joe Harris.
I don't know because I never met him.
Right, now he was born in New Jersey.
What town?
I believe Jersey City.
All right, well, that's farther north than where I was born. That Jersey City's just a stone's throw away from New York City.
Yeah, that's true. You gotta swim across the river, but still from New Jersey, I guess. So what else is important about this 56th birthday for a good old underdog?
Well, 56 is not a multiple of 5 or 10, so it's not a milestone anniversary number. I'm fostering it because it's on Saturday, the same way October 3rd, 1964, the day he premiered, was on a Saturday.
Now, you watched it, I guess, during the original run?
Its original runs?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you think you saw all episodes, or they did 60-something, right?
30.
Only 30? I thought it was more than that.
That's because every story was in 4 parts. There were 2 that were just 1 part, and 1 that was 2 parts. But there were only 30 stories altogether.
Yeah, I see. And you've seen all of them?
Yes, I saw all of them, and all of them had their programmatic and character flaws.
Like such as what?
Well, I said simplistic stories and dialogue, general lack of believability, high degree of violence, good guys too easily entrapped by bad guys.
And do you have a favorite episode?
An episode is just one part of a story that's several episodes long.
Okay, well, what's your favorite?
What was my favorite?
Yes.
Ghost Snow.
And why is that?
Because Simon Bar-Sinister invented a machine that was supposed to make his targets metamorphosize into snow figures. But that way, if they were actually transformed into snow, all you had to do was wait for some heat and they would melt away into nothing.
And that was it?
Well, Underdog was shot down and people tried to revive him, but it didn't work. And then all of a sudden he defrosted under his own power and overcame Simon Bar-Sinister. One big mistake in that is that Underdog was the only victim that people tried to rescue and aid after he met with misfortune.
How did you feel about them editing out the energy pill parts later on in the 80s?
Well, that it may have helped to serve an anti-drug cause, but it left a gap in the continuity in the storyline because children who were seeing it for the first time in the mid '80s couldn't understand how Underdog was weakened almost to the point of death and then strong again the next minute. Also, we also have to remember that Underdog did not use that pill in every story, only when he was brought to the point of exhaustion and he needed time to recharge his batteries, so to speak.
So now that part, it makes sense. So if you watched it, if you're a kid growing up back then, you watched it, it didn't make any sense.
That's right. I can never forget how some people were hostile to me when I did Underdog at the science fiction conventions. One man came over to me and said, "You better stop doing Underdog. He's nothing more than a dope addict." What? and he told me about Nancy Reagan deciding to turn against Underdog using the revitalizers.
Yeah, did Nancy Reagan actually speak out against Underdog?
I don't know.
Because I know she was speaking about drugs, anti-drug messages, that kind of stuff. That silly slogan.
Yeah, someone took their cue from her and deleted the cartoon films that had Underdog revitalizing. But look what happens. Like I said, Underdog didn't have to revitalize in every story, just a few. And like I said, the pills were not sources of strength. They were recuperatives. There's some commercial drinks for that purpose, beverages.
Which of his superpowers did you find the more interesting? I know you liked flying, but he had quite a few. So which ones did you enjoy?
Strength, a sense of goodwill. But then, naturally the flying.
But he was also good at calculating, right? Didn't he have an ability to make brainy decisions?
Yes. But there's one thing more I want to say about the anti-drug crusade. Nancy Reagan did Underdog a great disservice, but she completely ignored Popeye. Now Popeye is dependent on every story for spinach to become super strong only temporarily. Even though spinach is a food and not a drug, he is still chemically dependent on it in every story.
Right. So you feel that Popeye was addicted to spinach and Underdog was just an occasional user.
So it was wrong for the anti-drug crusaders to leave Popeye alone and degrade only Underdog.
So Nancy Reagan didn't know what she was talking about.
Her emphasis was on pills and things, but she totally ignored Popeye's dependency on spinach, and just did Underdog a disservice, or rather, someone took their cue from her anti-drug crusades and degraded Underdog.
Right. Plus, that slogan was "Just say no," which was kind of silly anyway.
It's too simplistic a slogan because it doesn't draw the line between illegal drugs and necessary drugs for health or recovery from illness the way a doctor prescribes, because doctors know everything there is to know. Besides, Nancy Reagan never reckoned with people who would not take no for an answer.
Did you ever hear of the Wu-Tang Clan using the Underdog theme in their album from the 90s?
Whose album?
Wu-Tang Clan. Did you ever hear of RZA?
No.
No, you're not a big fan of rap music.
No. Rap music really isn't music until you're singing the refrain, which follows several verses of a song. The song part, they're not singing; they're just talking, and the only sung part, with a melody, is the refrain.
Right. No, I was just curious if you ever heard it because they used it.
Oh boy. Because I've always preferred classical music. That's much higher quality music than anything else.
Right. So, do you want to add anything else to the birthday episode? Do you want to sing "Happy Birthday" to Underdog?
There was one of the stories that did focus on Underdog celebrating a birthday, but in the story, the adversary Riffraff derailed a train so that he could steal an an ancient sword collection. And when Underdog tried to put the train back on the tracks, he got a pain in his back. He said, "Whenever I bend over, there's a stabbing pain." And he was rushed to the hospital, but they didn't take his costume off. They tried all kinds of ways to what was causing the pain. They didn't take off Underdog's costume. They didn't make him wear a hospital uniform.
Mm-hmm.
As it turned out, Underdog's pain was caused by one of the ancient swords being caught in his cape, so that it stabbed him at the waist, at the center back of his waist, whenever he bent over. If they had just taken off his costume at the beginning, they would have solved the problem much more quickly.
Right, and that goes along with the other objections about the plot. Yes.
Lack of believability, or procedures, incorrect or wrong procedures.
Do you feel you would do a better job on writing the episodes than the original writers?
I did that when I was still watching the original runs. I did revise the scripts in my mind so that when I was performing in front of a television set in my private bedroom where no one could see me, I wasn't going strictly along with the plot as on the screen. I went along according to my revisions. Now there was nobody else to take on the part of the other characters. I just imagined there were extra performers with me.
Did you write actual scripts?
I did write some, but I never submitted them. Because my father was a tyrant about being concerned with the reality only.
Would you like to sing a happy birthday song to Underdog before we wrap it up?
I'd rather not. They did that in that one birthday episode, but then they made Underdog make a final blunder by trying to blow out the birthday candles, and he blew all the icing off the cake and smacked everybody with the icing, and all he did was just put his finger in the icing and lick it, and that was the end of the story.
So we want to skip that so it doesn't happen again. And especially now with COVID, the virus, we don't want to blow out any candles to spread the germs.
How does blowing out candles or a fire spread the germs? I don't understand.
Well, you have to use your breath to blow out the candles. You're going to have little droplets of, saliva, and you get the germs spread out.
My father taught me how to blow out a candle without exhaling a lot of breath. When the 4 weeks prior to Christmas came around, that's the liturgical church season of Advent. Some people have what they call an Advent wreath. Ever seen one?
Probably. I'm not too familiar with it. But...
Okay, well, we would light the candles, one additional candle each Sunday until Christmas came. When it was time to blow them out, my father showed me how to put them out by cupping his hand around the candle so that the candle was between his cupped hand and his mouth, and he went simply huff, not a big.
Right, but even with that,
you got the one candle out without splashing the wax or exuding too much breath.
I would imagine something gets out of your mouth anyway. The microscopic droplets.
I can't feel any moisture.
Well, we can't see the germs. You need the microscope for that.
Well, at any rate, at my last birthday, when some friends took me out for dinner and they brought me a slice of birthday cake to top it off, it had a single candle on it, and I blew it out by cupping my hand over it and huffing the way I described.
Well, I guess that's maybe Underdog should learn that from you, and next time we'll save the ice cream. All right, Suzanne, well, thank you for reminding everyone about Underdog's birthday. And it's going to be Saturday, October 3rd. And would you like to add anything, or should we wrap it up?
Well, I just have to hope that there'll be at least a couple of Christmas parades at the end of the year. There's one Halloween parade that is being held. That hasn't been canceled to suit the quarantine. Now for that Halloween parade, I'm doing a different character. But as long as I've been doing Christmas parades, any that I did over Thanksgiving weekend, I did as Underdog, because that was when that big helium balloon in the Macy's parade was introduced, and there was also a TV cartoon story connecting Underdog with the original Thanksgiving Beast. So any Christmas parades that are during Thanksgiving weekend, I do Underdog, and I'm hoping that the ones that I'm thinking of won't be called off, so that I can still do him this Thanksgiving weekend.
Right, so that'll be a nice way to wrap up the year. You get a couple of parades at least at the end.
Well, if there are any additional Christmas parades that aren't called off after what that take place later than Thanksgiving weekend, then I'm doing somebody else. I'm doing another character for those.
Yes, you did mention that. That's Catwoman.
Yes, and that one Halloween parade I spoke of that isn't being called off. I'm doing Catwoman in that one.
All right, well, let's hope that you get at least a couple, if not more.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for reminding us about Underdog's birthday, and hopefully people will celebrate it, and a piece of cake for Underdog.
I think the best way for people to celebrate the birthday is not to have one big cake, depending on how many people are attending. If people aren't doing Underdog parties, it's better that they not use a cake that has to be sliced up. If they use cupcakes, then you can grab an individual cake at a time and eat it without making a mess and without requiring tableware.
Right, and they can be.
And if Underdog is supposed to be 56, then you can make 56 cupcakes, and some guests are bound to eat more than one. If there are some left over at the end of the party, they're bound to take them home.
That sounds like a good suggestion. All right, Suzanne, well, thank you very much again, and enjoy your day, and we'll all celebrate Underdog's birthday today.
Thanks a lot for calling. I enjoyed the participation.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.